Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 3 of solving by completing the square. Now here what we've been doing is called completing the square or turning it into a perfect square trinomial. X minus 3 squared is x squared plus 6x plus something. In this case we figure out it's a 9. Now, if you understand that, go back to the original question I asked back here. X squared minus 6x minus 8. How do we solve that? Well, I showed you here. Turn it into a perfect square trinomial. You take half of your b value, minus 8, and minus 4, then square minus 4 gets 16, and add 16 to both sides. That turns into a perfect square trinomial. Then that's x minus 4 squared equals 22, and you solve that, you get x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 22. This is the lesson here, completing the square. Now, we're going to do a few examples, and then that'll be it, and you can try the homework. So, here's one for you. X squared plus 6x minus 1 equals 0. Now remember, it has to equal 0 in order for us to solve it, but we can't factor this quadratic. X squared plus 6x. No two numbers multiply together to be minus 1, add together to be plus 6. No nice numbers. So add 1 to both sides. X squared plus 6x equals 1. Now, what did we do the last few times? Found our b value, cut it in half, and squared it. So b equals 6. 1 half of b is 3. 3 squared is 9. So we add 9 to both sides. Add 9 to one side, we're changing the equation. Add it to both sides, we're not. Once you do that, that's x plus 3 squared, notice the 3, equals 10. And then what do you do next? Well, square root both sides. Plus or minus the square root of 10. Subtract 3. Now, minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 10 is the answer. I'm going to stop there. I want you to look at that for a moment. I want you to go back to pause the recording and take the answer, go back and plug it in. Plug in minus 3 plus root of 10 and minus 3 minus root of 10. You should get 0. Now, depending on how you round off, if you don't use the square root of 10 but go to 4 decimal places, you'll get close to 0. If you use square root of 10, you should get, something to the minus 10 or minus 20, which is close enough to 0. Okay, now that you checked it, I'm hoping it worked. Now, one more, and I'll show you the harder version. So, I want you guys, x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. I want you to solve this by completing the square. Now, if you know how to do it, pause the tape, do it, come back and check the answer. If you're having a little trouble, I'll do it slowly. Okay? All right, welcome back. So the first thing you do is get x squared minus 4x all by itself. Now, your b value, 1 half of b is minus 2, and minus 2 squared is plus 4. If you have to use a calculator, minus times a minus is positive, or better yet, put in brackets like I do here. Bracket minus 2, close bracket squared is plus 4. So we add 4 to both sides. The left-hand side becomes x minus 2 squared equals plus 2. Now what do? Square root both sides. x minus 2 equals plus or minus square root 2. And we want to solve for x. So I add 2 to both sides. X equals 2 plus or minus square root 2. And there you go. All right. Now that's pretty straightforward. Now, I'm going to show you the nasty version of this because honestly, this is pretty straightforward. Plug the numbers in. What's the only real trick I can do? Well, the only real trick or nastiness, besides not writing it as a quadratic. Now, when I mean not writing as a quadratic, I could rewrite this as x squared equals 4x minus 2. Notice this, it's just that equation rearranged. It's not a quadratic. Can you rearrange it so it is a quadratic equal to 0? Yes. Am I going to waste your time with one of those questions? No. Guys, in the last lesson, you did a whole bunch of those, and you showed me you know how to do it. I'm not wasting your time. What I am going to show you is what's generally considered the nasty ones. Something like 3x squared plus 24x plus 16. Now notice here, you have a number, an a value, in front of your x squared. Now for something like that, you got to factor it out. Now, let me show you, because it's not as bad as it looks. First thing you do, oh, sorry, we got to get rid of the 16 on both sides. So you subtract 16 from both sides. Now you see how you get the x squared and the x by itself, just like we did before. Now here's the twist. What's the difference between 3x squared and x squared that we normally have? The 3. So divide or factor out a 3 here. So you get 3 x squared plus 24. 8x equals minus 16. So we've done a little bit of cheating. Well, not cheating. We factored out 3. Now, depending on who's taught you this, or sorry, you may have seen this before. Some people insist on factoring a 3 out of both sides to keep the numbers simple. I don't, because I'm lazy. Anyway, let me show you. B equals 8. 1/2 b equals 4. And b squared equals 16. So far, so good? Now, so we add 16 to both sides. Now you're going, okay, hang on a sec. I want you to take a look at this and make certain you got it. X squared plus 8x plus 16. So we're adding 16 to the left side. Now, I made a boo-boo here. Everybody double check. My b value is 8. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. I've added 16 to both sides. What's going on? Well, I know somebody's got it, but for everybody else, this is 3 times 16, because I factored out a 3. So what am I adding? 3 times 16. So I have to add 3 times 16 to both sides. That's the big trick most people screw up on. Because it's 3 times 16 here, it has to be 3 times 16 on the other side. So many people screw that step up. Now, pause the tape, think about that for a sec, and then we'll continue. All right, welcome back. So this is 3 times x plus 4 squared equals, now minus 16 plus 3 times 16, minus 16 plus 16, 48. $32, I think. Now, what do we got? Now this is starting to look like what we had before. Now, I just want to point out we've got times 3 here. That's screwing everything up. How do we get rid of times 3? Divide by 3. So divide both sides by 3. You're down to x plus 4 squared equals 32 over 3. Now that's, if you want to be picky, that's 10 2/3, but it's, or 10.66 repeating. Whatever floats your boat. I'm going to keep it as a fraction because I can, because I want to. Now, here, what have we got? Well, we've got a square on one side, and we're asked to solve for x. So, how do we get rid of the square? Square root both sides. X plus 4 equals plus or minus down to 32 over 3. Now, do I simplify 32 over 3? I can, but let's just hang on for a sec. Minus 4, minus 4. So x equals minus 4 plus or minus square root of 32 over 3. Okay? Now, I want you guys to pause for a moment and look at this, because this a value, the number in front, screws everything up. Okay? Now, if I could have factored 3 out of everything, I just divide both sides by 3, but 16 I can't divide by 3. So I'm kind of hooped. So this is the nasty one. I factor out a 3, and then I add 16, or 3 times 16 to both sides, and then I solve. Okay? So far, so good? All right, now I want you to look at this. Make certain you understand it, because there's one last little thing I got to talk about. Now the problem here is this answer. So there's lots and lots and lots of ways to write out this answer. So on a test or a quiz, if it's multiple choice, you have to be prepared to go, okay, I got this, but what does it equal? Well, somebody's going to say square root of 32. 32 is 16 times 2, or 4 squared. So this is the square root of 4 squared times 2, or square root of 3, which is minus 4, plus or minus 2 square root 2 over square root 3. And then somebody's going to point out, but you can't have square root 3 in the denominator. You've got to rationalize it. Okay. Now, normally I don't give a poop. I would leave it like this and be happy. Trouble is, some people go, but you're not supposed to but you're supposed to rationalize the denominator, or they're going to be poo heads. And later on, I'll show you how some people insist on turning this into one equation, or sorry, one fraction. If this is a common denominator of 3, then that's 4 times 3, or minus 12 plus or minus 2 square root 6 over 3. You can write it like that just to confuse you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways to write it out. Now, I'm not going to be picky about that. On the homework, it's going to be short answer, show me one of these. I'm happy. I can figure out that this is the same as this, is the same as this, is the same as this, is the same as this. I don't care. But on a test, if it's multiple choice, you got to be prepared. Okay? So don't freak out about that. It's not a big deal. What is a big deal is if I give you one of these.
All grade 10s who have not had their picture taken, please go to the learning comments, all grade 10s. Please go even if you not plan on buying a package. Thank you.
3x squared plus 12x minus 5 equals 0. Now, remember, it's the a in front of the x squared that's screwing everything up, or the number in front of x squared. Now, can we divide everything by 3? No, we can't, so crap. We got to do it the long way. Now, if you got the idea how to do this, pause the recording, come back and check your answer later, or do it and we'll check our answer. If you're still a little fuzzy, pay attention. Okay, so add 5 to both sides. Squared plus 12x equals, switch over a little bit so I need space, equals 5. Now, this 3 in front of the x squared screws everything up. So I divide this by 3 and I divide this by 3. Or I factor out a 3 and I'm down to x squared plus 4x equals 5. Not bad, huh? Now, if I just do in the brackets, my b value is 4. Half of b is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I add 4 and I subtract 4 at the same. Oh, no, sorry. Sorry, forgive me. Another way to do it, I'm sticking with this way. I add 4 to both sides. And what's the trick here? It's 3 times this, so it's 3 times 4. So it has to be 3 times 4 here. So this is 5 plus 12, or 17. That's the trick. On the left side here, it's 3 times x plus 2 squared. B is half of b is 2. Now, so 3 x plus 2 squared equals 17. Now, can I solve this to isolate x? Yes. Easiest thing to do, times 3, divide both sides by 3. So I get x plus 2 squared is 17 over 3. And then, yes, square root both sides. X plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 17. Sorry, square root of 17 thirds. Might as well write it like that. Then, yes, minus 2 from both sides. So x equals minus 2 plus or minus square root of 17 thirds. And I'm going to leave it there because I don't care. Here you're supposed to rationalize the denominator. I don't care. Good enough for me. I'm happy. You guys okay with that? Well, I heard a couple. So one more. So look at this. If you don't believe me, plug it into Mr. Calculator and check it. So you get that darn number in front of the x squared to screw everything up. So here's one more, just for you to give it a try. X squared minus 7x minus 8 equals 0. So what do you do here? Okay, if you know how to do this, go do it, come back and check your answer. If you're still a little fuzzy, pay attention. Add 8 to both sides, because I want the x squared and the x over here by itself. Now, 2x squared minus 7x equals 8. Once again, we got a number in front of the x squared. I can't divide everything by 2 because 7 is odd, so I divide it by 2 anyway, or I factor out a 2, I should say. So that's x squared minus 7 halves x equals 8. Now, some of you guys don't like fractions. You'll be writing this as 2 times x squared minus 3.5x equals 8. Note, I don't care. Now, I prefer to leave it as a fraction.
Interruption, grade 11 student whose last name begins with the letters from A to I. Please go to the learning commons. Thank you.
B is minus 7 halves. 1/2 b is minus 7/4. That's why I like leaving it as a fraction, because you multiply it by 1/2, and minus 7/4 squared is 49/16. Now go ahead, try to turn that into a decimal. You can. I just hate it. I find fractions easier. Whatever. Plus 49/16. And what do you get? Now what's my mistake? Or sorry, not my mistake, because I haven't done it yet. I thought I'd forgotten to do it. Okay, 3.0625. Whatever. All right. And it is, yes, the 2. Now, it's getting messy. I'm just going to write it as a fraction. You want to do a decimal? Fine, I don't care. X minus 7/4 squared equals 8 plus 49/8. Okay. Now what do I do next? (49/8) is 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. (14 1/8). 14.125, whatever. Now, divide both sides by 2 to get rid of the 2. And this is where Mr. Calculator comes in so handy, because, gosh, 7 1/16. Like I said, I'm doing it as fractions. You want to do it as decimals? I don't care. Now, what do? Square root both sides. X minus 7/4 equals plus or minus square root of 7 1/16. And notice I'm leaving it like that because I am not trying to figure that one out. No, I'm not. I mean, I could try. I don't want to. So then X, sorry, plus 7/4. Now, actually, it might be a good idea, particularly if you guys had a little trouble in Chapter 2, simplifying radicals. What the heck is the square root of 7 1/16? I'm not going to make you do it, but just be prepared. You might have to do it one of these days. I'll give you a hint. It's the square root of 113 over the square root of 16. 113, I think, is prime. 99 times 14. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that's prime, but that's square root of 113 over 4. So that would be 7 plus or minus square root of 113 over 4. And if you remember your quadratic equation, that looks like an answer from the quadratic equation, but that's another section. So that's probably the easiest way to write the answer. Now, I'm going to stop and let you guys review that, and then I want you to go on and try your homework. And remember, the two tricks here, I'd rewrite the equation so it doesn't look like a quadratic like I did here, but we did a lot of those. It's when there's a number in front of the x squared you can't easily factor out. That's what you got to do. That's the hard one. So give that a try, work on the homework, and good luck. See you in class.